Well, why don't you start by telling the very few people who don't know who you are?
I'm Cammie Olmstead. Hi, everybody! Periscope peeps! My Facebook warrior friends!
Let's talk about your son. How old's your son now?
Jonah's 17. He'll be 18 in December.
He looks older, actually.
You think so?
I think he looks mature.
No. Are you talking about the boy that was running around outside? That's my older son. He's 21.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah.
No, he said he didn't want to be on film.
Yes, that is my older son.
Right, okay.
He has Asperger's, OCD, and generalized anxiety disorder. So
Jonah's in the car?
Jonah's in the car. He won't get out of the car.
All right.
So you'll have to go say hi to him.
We'll go take Periscope out there, say
Okay.
hi. Okay, so let's go back. Talk to me about his story.
Okay, well, I first probably need to say that I'm not sure now, looking back at all of this, if this story started with me. Because when I was an infant, I was sick all the time. I was in the hospital all the time. Allergic to everything, had asthma. My dad used to call me the Ethiopian baby because I was just bones. You'd never know it now. But I was just frail. I was allergic to carpet, grass, milk, everything you could think of. So,
how old are you? Do you mind me asking?
I'm 46.
Wow, okay. Carry
on. But then I kind of outgrew all of those things. But then I had my first son, who's running around out there. He's 21, but when he was a year old, he also had a seizure. But back then, I mean, I had no idea. He didn't lose language. He didn't lose any skills at all. He just started to develop these incredible obsessions that never went away. I mean, he still has them today, but he kind of knows how to manage these things now. But I didn't know. I kept saying to the doctors, there's something different. Like, he's obsessed with things, and if you don't do things, if you don't get him that red Hot Wheel with the trunk that opens, he freaks out. And they would say, oh no, he's just spoiled. And I said, no, that is not spoiled, and that is not a temper tantrum. That is something else. That was like he would not know how to function if he didn't have that red car with the trunk that opened to go in the line with all the other colors of cars he had with the trunks that opened. It was just devastating to him. And it went from that to collecting butterflies, so many butterflies that I would just have to let him go in my house. We had a really pretty living room and kitchen with butterflies flying around everywhere.
Really?
And then we had frogs, and he was obsessed with frogs. And I mean, it was just this constant, different obsession with him. And if I really go back further, I know that it started when he was just a baby. When he was a year old, he was obsessed with vacuum cleaners. And for Christmas, we got him a vacuum cleaner, and it was a toy one. I've never seen somebody so angry with me in my life when we gave that little 1-year-old boy, 1 year and 3 months old, a vacuum cleaner from Fisher-Price. No, he wanted a Hoover. He was not having anything to do with that little one that had the little confetti things that, you had to suck up. So anyway, he always struggled with things like that, but nobody ever paid attention to me. Then I got pregnant with Jonah, and my marriage was falling apart. So I told my husband at the time, I said, well, people get married and divorced all the time, and women raise their kids by themselves all the time. I'll just leave. And he didn't believe me, but I left, and I was pregnant with Jonah, and I had a 2.5-year-old and Jonah on the way. And I think with the pressure of being single and being scared by my ex-husband, that I really wanted to make sure I did everything perfectly right with Jonah too. So he was born. We didn't vaccinate him on the first day of life. He didn't have a vaccine. He had the Hep B when he was 26 days old on January 4th, 1999. On January 5th, 1999, he was projectile vomiting, and I called the doctor and said, he's projectile vomiting, it's shooting out of his mouth. And he said, babies get sick, that's what they do. And my sister was watching him when I was at work that evening, and she said, it's just shooting out of his mouth. So I took him to the hospital, or to the doctor the next day, and they said, well, that he's not really all that sick, but, your other son looks like he's sick. So they admitted both of them at the same time into the hospital. Ended up putting Jonah in an oxygen tent and Justin in an oxygen tent, and doing the respiratory therapists were coming in and banging on their backs, and Jonah was a month old and Justin was 3. And when I hear all these stories now from parents with babies that died from SIDS, I just think to myself, that could have been Jonah, because it was a Hep B and he was so sick. And if I hadn't have taken him to the doctor, I could have been one of the moms, going in to wake up her little baby in the morning and having him not wake up. So that was the first injury. And then the next barrage of shots, he had 2 DTPs in one day. Well, he had the DTP on 3/8/99. Then he had the DTP Hib on 3/8/99, and the IPV and the Hep B, the second Hep B. I mean, he was just bombarded with shots. But after every set of shots, after that first Hep B, he would always get respiratory infections, and I had to have a nebulizer at home all the time. So I think I had a prescription for a nebulizer for 6 or 7 months, where I had to give him albuterol when he would start to get wheezy, or he would start to come down with something. He would have to have the steroids all the time. Then when he was a year old, he had the chickenpox vaccine, and then he had the seizure. And I remember being in the ER that night, and I said he just had vaccines, and the doctor said that has nothing to do with it. They did a spinal tap, an enema, catheter, drew his blood, did every battery of tests they could, and they said that vaccines had nothing to do with it. They never told me if they found anything in the spinal tap fluid or anything else, and I didn't know at that point in time to look. I just knew that he had vaccines, then he had a seizure. Maybe to me, it made sense.
Keep going, sorry, it's just really dark.
Oh.
People can't really see.
But apparently I took him back to get the MMR at 15 months, and then the Prevnar. But after that chickenpox shot, he just lost everything. He used to say kitty ball light. He would point up at the lights and say, "Yite!" He just lost all of his skills, and never gained them back. I mean, I think it was 3 years before he even looked at me when I called his name. And then eventually he was diagnosed when he was 3 with autism, and then when they were diagnosing Jonah, they said, "Have you ever had your other son looked at?" I said, "No, but I would like somebody to tell me what's going on with him, because I know something is off." So they diagnosed him with Asperger's the same day Jonah got diagnosed with autism. And then the journey began. So this is him. This is before his shots. A happy little baby.
Cutie.
And then this was every picture after. He had his ears covered, and he wouldn't look at you. He was always trying to escape. Every time I look at that picture, I remember Andy talking about the belly.
Yeah, this is a real Andy Wakefield photograph.
Yeah. So, because nobody listened, you guys are getting to finish the journey I started in 2005. I wanted to go across the country and tell people, wake people up. So, in 2005, we did the first Cross America for Autism Journey of Hope. We went 10,000 miles, 30 states, and met parents and talked to parents. I took my boys, it was just me and them, and everybody thought I was nuts. I said, you know what, I'm going to go, because nobody's listening to us. So I went to George Bush's ranch in Texas, and they ignored me. I went to CNN for 3 hours. They ignored me with these 2 little children. All I wanted somebody to just listen to what's happening, because back then I think it was 1 in 150. And if they had have listened when it was 150, we wouldn't be at 145 today. So we did it again. This was our second van, our second year. So I want you guys to take us with you on your journey. Because
Can we put that photograph up?
Yes. I would love it if you would. I'm like, I kind of feel like you get to do the things that I couldn't, and I was just thrilled.
No, you did do it. And so it was because of people like you doing what you did that we are able to do what we're doing now. So it's really important you know that.
Well, thank you, and I'm glad that you guys get to do this because I mean, if I had that van today, I would have followed you to every city that you went to.
Okay, I'm going to stick the photograph up. Should we go and see your son?
Yes, and my mom is a superstar, and she wanted to talk to you. I know you don't have time,
here?
but she's outside.
Oh yeah, we're going to talk to her. I won't do anything you don't want me to do. I don't think he wants to know, Josh.
Okay.
Say hi to them. Say hi, everybody.
All right, well, no, we're going to
Finally being calm.
sitting in the car all the time.
Oh, you're welcome.
Sorry we took so long.
I have got to.